And, yeah, go ahead.
Can you confirm or deny that the U.S. has not...
And we'll leave this now. The U.S. House is coming in for a series of 3 votes. Live coverage here on C-SPAN.
...last 3 days.
The consideration of Senate Joint Resolution 8 and ask for its immediate consideration in the House.
The clerk will report the title of the joint resolution.
Senate Joint Resolution 8, Joint Resolution providing for the appointment of Stephen M. Case as a citizen regent of the Board of Regents of the Smithsonian Institution.
Is there objection to the consideration of the joint resolution? Without objection, the joint resolution is read a 3rd time and passed, and the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
Mr. Speaker,
What purpose does the gentleman from California
I
rise?
ask unanimous consent that the Committee on House Administration be discharged from further consideration of House Resolution 197 and ask for its immediate consideration in the House.
The clerk will report the title of the resolution.
House Resolution 197, Resolution electing members to the Joint Committee on Printing and the Joint Committee of Congress on the Library.
And I will not object. I would just like to commend the gentleman for bringing this measure and how important it is that the Holocaust be remembered right here in the heart of our capital, and I yield back my time.
Gentlewoman withdraws. Without objection, the resolution is agreed to and the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. What purpose does the gentleman from California rise?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the Committee on House Administration be discharged from further consideration of House Concurrent Resolution 33 and ask for its immediate consideration in the House.
Clerk will report the title of the concurrent resolution.
House Concurrent Resolution 33, Concurrent Resolution permitting the use of the Rotunda of the Capitol for a ceremony as part of the commemoration of the Days of Remembrance of Victims of the Holocaust.
Is there objection to consideration of the concurrent resolution? Without objection, the concurrent resolution is agreed to and the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. What purpose does the gentleman from California rise?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous materials on S.J. Res. 8, H. Res. 197, and H. Con. Res. 33.
Objection. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, proceedings will resume on questions previously postponed. Votes will be taken in the following order. H.R. 1308 by the yeas and nays. S. 307 by the yeas and nays. Approval of the journal by the yeas and nays. The first electronic vote will be conducted as a 15-minute vote. Remaining electronic votes will be considered as 5-minute votes. The unfinished business is a vote on the motion of the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Kelly, to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 1308, on which the yeas and nays are ordered. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 1308, a bill to amend the Ronald Reagan Centennial Commission Act to extend the termination date for the Commission and for other purposes.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill? Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 15-minute vote.
3 recorded votes on the House floor. This first one, 15 minutes, a bill that would continue the commission that's been planning the Ronald Reagan Centennial Celebration. 2 5-minute votes will follow, and that will do it for recorded votes for legislative work on this Tuesday evening. The discussion this week is going to be all about the budget, both in the House and the Senate, as both bodies look to finish up work before their 2-week spring recess. By Friday, the House will take up the 2012 Republican budget proposal that was introduced by Paul Ryan and approved by the Budget Committee last week. Tomorrow, the President will talk about his debt reduction plan, a follow-on to his own budget proposal of February, and we will cover that speech for you tomorrow at 1:35 Eastern over at George Washington University. That'll be on C-SPAN 3. But the pending business ahead of the U.S. House will be a couple of days' debate on the long-term continuing resolution. You may recall as of Friday, in the end of that short-term spending measure, the White House and Republicans agreed to nearly $40 billion in cuts from 2010 levels on the long-term continuing resolution, which would fund the government through the end of the current fiscal year, through September 30th of 2011. So earlier today, we spoke to a Capitol Hill reporter for a preview on the debate ahead on the continuing resolution. Joining us is Molly Hooper of The Hill. When is the vote on the long-term continuing resolution likely to occur in the House?
It's likely to occur on Thursday. Leaders weren't able to finish up all the details by Monday night, and what they want to do is make sure that they're within that 3-day rule, that 3-day window that they set out in the House Rules package in the beginning of the year.
So that's the reason it got pushed back from Wednesday then?
Yes, because initially they were supposed to introduce the bill on Monday night, and I believe that it was filed early Tuesday.
Representative Jim Jordan of Ohio said today in a statement that he's going to vote against the CR when it comes up for a final vote. Why, and how many of his colleagues in that fiscally conservative group, the Republican Study Committee, how many of those members plan to follow his lead?
Yeah, that's a very, he actually voted against the second stopgap bill a few weeks ago, along with a group of conservatives who said that, they needed to get the show on the road, so to speak, and just, move this thing along. But his big problem is that there aren't enough cuts in the bill. House Republicans were initially pushing for $100 billion in cuts, and Jim Jordan actually went further than that, because the House Republican $100 billion in cuts came from President Obama's initial budget request for 2011. But Jim Jordan tried to move an amendment on the floor during the initial debate on the long-term CR over here on the House side that would cut $100 billion in toto from current spending. So he has always been a critic of the fact that the bill, even the bill that passed the House in February, didn't go as far as he would like. Now, he supported that, but he always said it could go a little bit farther.
Well, on this go-around, the bill that's got to fund the government through September 30th, if there are defections like Jim Jordan, will House Speaker Boehner need more Democrats to help him pass the bill?
I think he will. But this is also remember, it's a Democratic-Republican compromise, and I have a feeling that President Obama is going to be calling up many Democrats to make sure that he gets the support from Democrats to pass this bill over on the House side as well.
Well, speaking of compromises, on the Senate side, there are two other roll call votes that Senate Majority Leader Reid has agreed to hold as part of the long-term agreement. Can you tell us about those?
Well, yes. One provision will be on the plan to defund Planned Parenthood, and that was pushed by fiscal and social conservative Mike Pence over on the House side. That was included in the original House-passed bill that would cut $61 billion from current spending levels.
Right.
The Senate agreed to take it up to vote on that up or down, but it will require 60 votes for passage. That apparently is part of the deal, and House members are just finding this out now. And the other provision is on defunding the president's health care law. And that actually has already been voted on in the Senate in the beginning of February, and it only garnered 47 votes in favor.
And prospects not much better this time around in the Senate?
I don't think so. I don't think that Republicans anticipate having the votes to approve either one of those resolutions.
Molly Hooper,
or one of those provisions.
Molly Hooper covering the debate on the continuing resolution. Thanks for that update. You can read her work at thehill.com. And the House Rules Committee is meeting this evening to develop the rule for debate on that continuing resolution. Likely to see initial debate, the rule debate, tomorrow in the U.S. House, and the general debate on Thursday. Here in the House now, there are 3 votes. The first one underway, 15-minute vote, which would a bill that would continue the commission planning the Ronald Reagan Centennial Celebration. Well, you heard the interview there about the 2011 spending. President Obama tomorrow will be talking about debt reduction, his debt reduction plan, and we will carry the president's speech live for you at 1:35 Eastern. Earlier today, as the U.S. Senate went to their weekly party lunches, Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell briefed reporters outside the Senate on his views of a deficit reduction plan. He said raising taxes to pay off debt was, quote, off the table. He spoke to reporters for just over 5 minutes.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. We all know why we're here this week. We're going to wrap up the continuing resolution when it comes over from the House on Thursday. It is about saving billions, but then we're going to pivot and move in the direction of dealing with the necessity to save trillions. The House will be passing a budget later this week that puts us on a glide path to saving trillions in the coming years. Senator Corker and Senator McCaskill have been working on the CAP Act, which gives us a glide path to saving trillions in the coming years. All of this, of course, is absolutely essential if we're going to have the kind of country for our children that our parents left behind for us. We're fortunate to have a member of our conference who actually has young children and obviously shares the concern we all have about what kind of debt burden we're leaving behind for them. And I want to ask Senator Kelly Ayotte to make some comments, and then we'll later take your questions.
Thank you, Leader McConnell. We saw the debate over last Friday. When you think about and you put that debate in perspective to the $14 trillion that we have to address, this is really not just about this generation. I'm always talking about my children, but it really is about what future we are going to leave for the next generation in this country and generations to come. And as we move forward, I very much hope that the President, as he addresses, he's going to be giving an address this week on the deficit and the debt, that he comes forward with a solid plan that is going to put forward reforms and spending reductions to make meaningful debt reduction, to put us on a path that is sustainable for our country. This is an issue that requires presidential leadership in order to address our entitlements. We know that's 60% of the budget issue that we have to address, to preserve those entitlements for those that are relying on them and make sure that we put them on a sustainable path going forward. So I look forward to hearing the President's address. We're ready to work with him to put our country on a responsible path, because it's not just about us. It's about my 6-year-old, my 3-year-old, and parents across this country that are concerned about what we are leaving for our children and our grandchildren.
Okay, we'll take a couple of questions if there are any.
Senator, what would you like in exchange for voting to raise the debt ceiling? Would it be a cap, for example, such as the corporate?
Well, obviously, we're going to require, as a condition for raising the debt ceiling, something really important about the debt. And we're all aware of the array of opportunities. Let me define for you what I would consider as significant without giving you the detail that you'd like to have. My view is, and I hope this will be the view of every single Senate Republican, is that in order to get my vote for raising the debt ceiling, we would need to do something significant about the debt, and let me define what I would view as significant. Something that the markets would view as significant, something the American people would view as significant, something foreign countries would view as significant. Obviously, that means no window dressing, no blue smoke and mirrors, something real, something measurable that clearly will begin to reduce our debt. That's my definition of something significant, and obviously we'll be talking to the President about that very subject in great detail in the coming weeks. Well, I would respond to that saying it's about time. You know, he sent up a budget earlier this year that was literally laughable, and everybody's been challenging, I think challenging him, the most outspoken actually, the editorial page of the Washington Post, to get into this discussion and to lead. The census revealed that there are about 307 million Americans. There's only one of the 307 million Americans who can sign a bill into law. Only one who can guarantee an actual accomplishment. And until he is directly involved, and until he indicates he's willing to sign something, it's all just talk. Well, the time for talking is over. The time for doing is now. And that will be precipitated by the request of the President, of us, that we raise the debt ceiling. Well, based on what the Secretary of the Treasury is saying, we anticipate that this debt ceiling issue will come before us between Memorial Day and the 4th of July.
Did you come away with the feeling that he is ready to sign something, he is serious about entitlement reform?
Well, you know, I talk to the President from time to time, and expect to be talking to him some more. It's just that I've had a good conversation with him, and we do talk from time to time. We've had actually many conversations since November 2nd. Well, we all know we have this problem not because we tax too little, but because we spend too much. There's no way to tax our way out of this problem. From my point of view, taxes are not on the table because we don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. Thanks, everyone.
Senator McConnell and his Republican colleagues earlier today at the midday break in the U.S. Senate. Back live on the House floor, this is the first of 3 votes. It's a 15-minute vote on extending the Ronald Reagan Centennial Commission. 2 more 5-minute votes will follow, and that will do it for recorded votes this evening. Also earlier today during that Senate break, the Majority Leader, Harry Reid, came out and spoke with reporters.
During the last few weeks, we fought very hard to protect what we felt were important issues for the American middle class. We also fought to make sure that the economy continues to grow and not do as H.R. 1 did, cut 700,000 jobs. These priorities are reflected in the compromise that we reached on the CR, the continuing resolution. We fought for cuts, but they had to be smart cuts. Cuts that would strengthen our economy instead of weakening it. We specifically fought to protect women, children, and seniors. We fought to protect the health care that we worked so hard to move toward last year. The only thing Republicans fought to protect were the richest of the rich. Now, as the House takes up the 2012 budget this week, it's clear once again that the 2 parties' priorities are significantly different. We're fighting to create jobs here at home, reward the middle class, but they, in this new budget they call a budget, does nothing to help the middle class, those that are less privileged. Our budget must reflect and respect our values. Republicans agree on that. The Speaker and Budget Committee Chairman both used the word moral when talking about the budget. So it's disappointing to see them try to tear down programs that have kept Americans out of poverty and out of the hospital for decades, just to please their base. That's what the Republican budget does. Their budget is more of the same. It's another way of pushing forward H.R. 1. It's a roadmap to ruin for millions of Americans. They want to end Medicare as we know it and Social Security as we know it. These are not the American people's priorities. They're not the priorities our economy can afford, so we're just going to continue fighting as we see American priorities should be. I think you're wrong on those numbers. Yes, David?
Tangential to all this, Mayor Vincent Gray.
Does that mean off the side?
Well, it means whatever you
None
want.
of these big words. Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
It's tangential, but it's right on point. You'll see. I promise. Mayor Vincent Gray of the district came up here, as you know, earlier in the week, yesterday in fact, and led a protest, got arrested, tried to stop traffic because he's unhappy that the president dealt away the District of Columbia's right to spend its own money on abortions for women. How do you feel about the Gray arrest and the demonstration and what the president did in regard to PC abortions?
The state of Nevada, every state would have suffered significantly from a shutdown of government operations, but no state would suffer the irreparable harm that the District of Columbia would suffer as a result of a government shutdown. We worked very hard to keep the government open, which really was the best thing we could do for the District of Columbia. The issue that the President agreed on, that was a 5-month deal, actually till the end of this fiscal year. And even though I've been for D.C. statehood for 15 years, I think what we did to keep government open should make the people of the District of Columbia very happy. Yes. Yes, Senator Conrad made a presentation to us today, and he's going to work on that. He hopes to do it when we get back after the Easter Passover recess.
Leading up to the review again, the 6 update, is that tied to production of this budget?
Not that I know of, no. And the answer is no, he did not give us an update on the June 6th. Yes. Well, I hope we can get it done on Thursday. We're going to try very hard. We have a plan, and I've talked to Senator McConnell today, and we're going to do our best to execute it. We haven't done a whip check. We had a caucus that was quite good today. People realized how difficult it was. But I think it was interesting to note that there's a new poll out, PPI poll, that said 62% of the people of America think the Republicans have made things worse. So that's the poll that came out this morning. And as Rush Limbaugh said on his program yesterday or the day before, it was yesterday, I'm sorry, that the paraphrasing, Democrats took Republicans as cleaners on this budget deal. So we'll see how my caucus feels when it's all over. I would hope the President, I'm confident he will address the long-term fiscal problems we have as a country. We know that when the President assumed office, he inherited some real problems. 2 wars that were unpaid for, these huge tax cuts, none of which were paid for, and losing 8 million jobs. We've tried to work out of that hole the last 2 years, and we're making progress. So what I would do, what I would hope the President would do, is give us a long-range view, where we have to stop giving these huge subsidies to oil companies who former chief executives said we shouldn't be giving them to them anyway. I think we should do more, certainly a lot more, to stop shipping jobs overseas. I think that we have to look at entitlements. I have no problem with the President doing that. As I've said on a number of occasions, though Social Security has not contributed 1 penny to the deficit, leave Social Security alone.
This vote, the yeas are 383, the nays are 17, 2/3 being in the affirmative. The rules are suspended and then the bill is passed. And without objection, the motion to reconsider.
Mr. Payne. Mr. Payne votes aye. Mr. Burgess. Mr. Burgess votes aye. Mr. Gingrey. Mr. Gingrey votes aye. Mr. Smith of New Jersey. Mr. Smith of New Jersey votes aye. Mr. Markey. Mr. Markey votes aye. Mr. Conyers. Mr. Conyers votes aye. Ms. Waters. Ms. Waters votes aye. Mr. Lewis of Georgia. Mr. Lewis of Georgia votes aye.
On this vote, the yeas are 394, the nays are 18. Two-thirds being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. The unfinished business is the vote on the motion of the gentleman from Arkansas, Mr. Crawford, to suspend the rules and pass S. 307, on which the yeas and nays are ordered. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Senate 307, an act to designate the federal building in United States Courthouse located at 217 West King Street, Martinsburg, West Virginia, as the W. Craig Broadwater Federal Building and United States Courthouse.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill? Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
And this vote, the second of 3 votes, is on naming a federal building and courthouse in Martinsburg, West Virginia. One more vote will follow this. I want to tell you about our live coverage coming up tonight on the C-SPAN networks. In just a few minutes, as a matter of fact, we'll take you to a Canadian parliamentary debate. The parliamentary elections are set for May 2nd in Canada. And tonight, a debate between Canadian Conservative Party leader Stephen Harper and 3 other major party leaders. You may recall the Parliament dissolved last month after a no-confidence vote was passed by the opposition parties. That is coming to you live, 7 o'clock Eastern, and that'll be on C-SPAN 3. Also, Hillary Clinton, the Secretary of State, is speaking this evening at the Brookings Institution's U.S. Islamic World Forum. Their gala dinner is tonight, and she's going to be speaking about the economic and social challenges of the Middle East. That's coming up at 8:30. That'll be live on C-SPAN 2. And one more live coverage note for tomorrow. President Obama will be unveiling his debt reduction plan. We'll have live coverage of his speech at George Washington University. That'll be at 1:35 Eastern on C-SPAN 3 and also on C-SPAN Radio.
Vote, the yeas are 402, the nays are 3, 1 being recorded as present, 2/3 being in the affirmative.
Mrs. Fox. Mrs. Fox votes aye. Mr. Webster. Mr. Webster votes aye.
This vote, the yeas are 408, the nays are 3, 1 being recorded as present, 2/3 being in the affirmative. The rules are suspended. The bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Pursuant to Clause 8, Rule 20, the unfinished business is the question on agreeing to the Speaker's approval of the Journal, on which the yeas and nays were ordered. The question is on agreeing to the Speaker's approval of the Journal. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
And this will be the last recorded vote today. General speeches are ahead. What's ahead in the U.S. House this week is debate on spending, 2012 spending by Friday, but 2011 spending, the continuing resolution, the deal agreed to by Republicans in the White House late on Friday, would cut nearly $40 billion from 2010 levels. Initial debate will begin tomorrow with the rule debate in the U.S. House. We get a preview from a Capitol Hill reporter. Joining us is Molly Hooper of The Hill. When is the vote on the long-term continuing resolution likely to occur in the House?
It's likely to occur on Thursday. Leaders weren't able to finish up all the details by Monday night, and what they want to do is make sure that they're within that 3-day rule, that 3-day window that they set out in the House rules package in the beginning of the year.
So that's the reason it got pushed back from Wednesday then?
Yes, because initially they were supposed to introduce the bill on Monday night, and I believe that it was filed early Tuesday.
Representative Jim Jordan of Ohio said today in a statement that he's going to vote against the CR when it comes up for a final vote. Why, and how many of his colleagues in that fiscally conservative group, the Republican Study Committee, how many of those members plan to follow his lead?
Yeah, that's a very... He actually voted against the second stopgap bill a few weeks ago, along with a group of conservatives who said that, they needed to get the show on the road, so to speak, and just, move this thing along. But his big problem is that there aren't enough cuts in the bill. House Republicans were initially pushing for $100 billion in cuts, and Jim Jordan actually went further than that, because the House Republican $100 billion in cuts came from President Obama's initial budget request for 2011. But Jim Jordan tried to move an amendment on the floor during the initial debate on the long-term CR over here on the House side that would cut $100 billion in toto from current spending. So he has always been a critic of the fact that the bill, even the bill that passed the House in February, didn't go as far as he would like. Now, he supported that, but he always said it could go a little bit farther.
Well, on this go-around, the bill that's got to fund the government through September 30th, if there are defections like Jim Jordan, will House Speaker Boehner need more Democrats to help him pass the bill?
I think he will. But this is also remember, it's a Democratic-Republican compromise, and I have a feeling that President Obama is going to be calling up many Democrats to make sure that he gets the support from Democrats to pass this bill over on the House side as well.
Well, speaking of compromises, on the Senate side, there are two other roll call votes that Senate Majority Leader Reid has agreed to hold as part of the long-term agreement. Can you tell us about those?
Well, yes, one bill will be one provision will be on the plan to defund Planned Parenthood, and that was pushed by fiscal and social conservative Mike Pence over on the House side. That was included in the original House-passed bill that would cut $61 billion from current spending levels.
Right.
The Senate agreed to take it up to vote on that up or down, but it will require 60 votes for passage. That apparently is part of the deal, and House members are just finding this out now. And the other provision is on on defunding the president's health care law. And that actually has already been voted on in the Senate in the beginning of February, and it only garnered 47 votes in favor.
And prospects not much better this time around in the Senate?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think that the Republicans anticipate having the votes to approve either one of those resolutions.
Molly Hooper,
or one of those provisions.
Molly Hooper covering the debate on the continuing resolution. Thanks for that update. You can read her work at thehill.com. And the continuing resolution, the House Rules Committee should be finishing up work on that this evening. It is likely to be on the floor tomorrow in the U.S. House. Also tomorrow, the President will talk about his deficit reduction plan. We will cover the President's speech at George Washington University tomorrow afternoon at 1:35 Eastern. That'll be on C-SPAN 3 and also on C-SPAN Radio. Politico's Jonathan Allen writes that the President will preview his deficit containment speech for top congressional leaders tomorrow morning. This is according to a House Republican leadership aide. Jonathan Allen writes the White House press office confirmed that President Obama will invite leading Republicans and Democrats from both chambers to discuss what he'll say in that speech, and that will happen tomorrow, sometime tomorrow morning at the White House. You're watching live House coverage on C-SPAN, and this is the last recorded vote of the day.
On this vote, the yeas are 325, the nays are 79, 2 voting present. The journal is approved.
I'm getting replaced.
The House will be in order. All members, please take their conversations off the floor. The House will be in order. The chair is prepared to entertain 1-minute requests. The House will be in order. Members, please take their conversations off the floor. The gentleman from North Dakota is recognized for 1 minute.
Yesterday, I had the
gentleman suspend. The House will be in order.
Yesterday, I had the opportunity to tour overland flooded sites in North Dakota. River levels hit record highs, and thousands of North Dakotans volunteered their time and their effort to save homes and lives. So today I'd like to recognize the thousands of high school students that helped fill and stack sandbags that protected property and lives. Together, they helped Cass County residents. They helped protect their homes as the river rose. Without the help of these young volunteers, many North Dakotans would have been left unprepared. Unprepared for the overland flooding that affected our state. These students are students that care about their communities. Their dedication exemplifies the spirit that we see in North Dakota and the next generation of leaders. I'm pleased that their efforts to protect our communities worked, and I'd like to recognize them today. Thank you, and I'll yield back my time.
Gentlemen, yield time. The House will be in order. Will the members please remove their conversations from the floor? For what purpose does the gentleman from Iowa rise? Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to continue a discussion started by a good friend and former Iowa Congressman Berkeley Bredell in today's Des Moines Register. Today, page 9A, I'd like to ask unanimous consent to enter Congressman Bredell's column into the record.
Objection.
In his column, Congressman Bredell, titled, quote, "Those who own America should help pay for government," end of quote. Congressman Bredell argues that Congress's budget focus on cutting costs instead of generating revenue is fundamentally skewed and not good business. He writes, quote, "Show me a company that ignores revenue and focuses on cutting costs, and I will show you a firm that is headed for failure. Show me a government that ignores revenue and focuses on cutting costs, and I will show you a government that is in failure." Congressman Bredell writes that corporations and the richest Americans need to properly contribute to the government through taxes that are relevant to their wealth. For me, this means eliminating billions a year in subsidies to multi-million-dollar oil and gas companies. It means ending mortgage deductions for vacation homes and yachts that cost taxpayer billions a year in lost revenue. It means ending the Bush-era tax cut for the wealthiest 2% to increase our revenue by more than $40 billion. Americans deserve a government that works and blindly cutting costs and services and just accomplish that. I thank you, and I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas rise?
Request permission to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection.
Houston, we have a problem. These are the words from space when Apollo 13 was in trouble. The NASA folks in Houston, Texas helped bring Apollo 13 back to Earth safely. Now, Houston, we have another problem. Because for obvious political reasons, none of the 4 shuttles are going to be retired at Space Center USA in Houston, Texas, the home of NASA, the Johnson Space Center, and the home of the astronauts. For nearly 50 years, Houston, Texas has been the center of world space exploration. Why the apparent shuttle snub to Houston and to history? Well, it's blatantly political. Texas is a red state, and the 4 winners of the shuttles, one of which has nothing to do with NASA, all are states that voted for the president. And when the U.S. won its race to the moon in 1969, the first word on the moon was Houston, not New York City. Now it should be said, Houston, the shuttles have landed, but only in the blue states that voted for the president. This ought not to be, but that's just the way it is.
For what purpose does the gentleman from New Mexico rise? Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor U.S. Marine Sergeant Robert Treadway, who gave the ultimate sacrifice and service to our nation. Sergeant Treadway was killed in a plane crash in 1976 while on active duty. However, it wasn't until earlier this week, nearly 35 years later, that Sergeant Treadway received the memorial service befitting of all of our fallen heroes. On Monday, a memorial service was held for Sergeant Treadway at the Santa Fe National Cemetery, helping bring closure to his mother, Teresa Treadway. For nearly 2 decades, Miss Treadway tried several times to arrange for the memorial service that Sergeant Treadway had earned. Her unwavering dedication to her son brought her to my office. I was honored to have the opportunity to help Ms. Treadway pay tribute to her son, a Marine to his core. The men and women who serve our country in the armed services sacrifice a tremendous amount, but so do their loved ones that they leave behind when they protect and serve our great nation. This is why I was honored to be able to help Ms. Treadway finally give her son a memorial that is befitting of his sacrifice and honors his memory. To Sergeant Treadway and his mother, thank you for being examples of the American spirit at its finest.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Georgia rise? Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The spending debate in Washington boils down to a couple of fundamentals. We spend 23% of our GDP. That is the level of spending of Congress. The revenues to GDP are only 18%. So you got a 5% difference in what your revenues are and what your spending are. Years of doing this means that right now, for every dollar we spend, 40 cents is borrowed. You can't continue to defy gravity. This week we will consider the Ryan budget. It has tax reform, it has spending reforms, it has regulatory reform. All things are very good. I'm glad to see that the President will be reintroducing another budget this week, because I think it's very important that if you do not like the Republican Ryan budget, that's fine. But put your budget on the table, because surely the Democrat Party has some ideas. So far, all we've heard from the Democrats is criticism. That's not good enough in times like these. We've got to come together as a country to do what's best, not for the next election, but for the next generation and indeed for our future. Thank you very much, and I yield back.
The gentleman's time has expired. For what purpose does the gentleman from New York rise?
1 minute, advising some remarks.
Without objection.
Ladies and gentlemen, later this week we are going to be considering the Medicare Elimination and Middle Class Tax Increase Act of 2011. We've heard it called the Ryan Bill, but that's what it does. First, it does some things that I'm sure are very popular in America. It says, let's eliminate the Medicare program. Let's say to senior citizens, you know what, we're going to give you a voucher, and you go out and shop for health care, and good luck finding it. That's one proposal. And then it says, let's take $750 billion of Medicaid expenses and shift them to the states so that the states have to raise taxes and the localities have to raise taxes. This is the idea of some new, interesting idea. You know, it was said by the previous speaker that Democrats haven't come forward with any ideas. Yeah, we came up with the idea of Medicare to provide health care for seniors, Social Security to provide a safety net for seniors in their advancing years. These are the programs that we care about and are going to fight for. Now, this week on the House floor, Republicans are going to say we're against Medicare. They want to eliminate it as it stands. Now, isn't it ironic? They spent all last year in criticizing the Health Care Act because it harmed Medicare. Now, suddenly, they want to eliminate it. Hypocrisy.
Time has expired. Are there any further 1-minute requests? The Chair lays before the House the following personal requests.
Leaves of absence requested for Mr. Culberson of Texas for today and Mr. Reichert of Washington for today and for Wednesday, April 13th.
Without objection, the requests are granted. Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 5, 2011, the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Brown, is recognized for 60 minutes as a designee of the majority.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. America is facing some very perilous times because of the joblessness, because of the poor economy, because of the outrageous spending that's been going on for the last 2 years through the last Congress. And I come tonight, Mr. Speaker, to discuss something that I think is critically important for the American people to understand.
because we've gotten away from what the Constitution says and what the original intent of the Constitution might be. I've seen member after member, Mr. Speaker, hold up a copy of the Constitution. I carry a copy in my pocket. And they'll hold up a copy of the Constitution and talk about this being a living and breathing document. Nothing could be further from the truth in the philosophy of our Founding Fathers. In fact, our Founding Fathers meant to be a very solid foundation. The Declaration of Independence expresses the philosophy of liberty in America. And the Constitution is an embodiment of those principles into a governing document. Mr. Speaker, if we don't have a solid foundation upon which to build all of our laws, all of our society, then we're building our society and laws on shifting sand. You can ask a 6-year-old, if you build a house or a building on shifting sand, what's going to happen? It's going to fall. It's going to fail. And that's exactly what's happening in our country today, because we've gotten away from the original intent of the Constitution. In Hosea 4:6, God says, "My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge." And we have a tremendous lack of knowledge about the foundational principles, what our Founding Fathers meant for government to be. We have a tremendous lack of knowledge in this nation, even in federal jurists, even in jurists sitting on the U.S. Supreme Court, about the Constitution. In fact, I was very shocked. As I got interested in politics, I started talking to lawyers who've gone to law schools all over this country. The majority of lawyers that I've spoken with, law schools, public and private, all across this country, they all have a course called constitutional law. But the American public would be absolutely shocked to understand that lawyers, even when they take constitutional law, and a lot of law schools, it's an elective even. When they take constitutional law, they don't study the Constitution. All they study is case law, what the federal court system has said about the Constitution. And we've got federal jurists all the way up to the Supreme Court, but in all levels, from federal district courts to the appellate system, all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, that bring down ruling after ruling that are not based upon the Constitution and its original intent. That philosophy leads to tyranny in all possibility. Our Founding Fathers never meant this. And in fact, if people would read the Constitution and read what our Founding Fathers said about the Constitution, they would understand that. There's a great resource that talks about what our Founding Fathers meant for the Constitution to be. And in fact, the architect of the Constitution, James Madison, John Jay, the first U.S. Supreme Court Chief Justice, and Alexander Hamilton, who was an ardent Federalist, who believed in a strong federal government, wrote a series of essays. These essays were printed in the newspapers in New York State. They were written to tell New Yorkers about what government should be under the Constitution in its original intent. They explained in minute detail what government should be, not only then, but 200, 400, 600 years later, because they knew very firmly, very strongly, that if we didn't have that original intent and a strong, solid foundation of government, that we could lose our liberty. That's the reason they wanted us to stay with their intent in the Constitution. They wrote these series of essays. Those essays have been bound together. This little booklet, the Federalist Papers, contains those essays. These essays, written by James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and John Jay, about the Constitution, to explain the Constitution. And if people will get the Federalist Papers and read them, they will see how far off track we have gotten as a nation. They will see that our nation is being destroyed from within, being destroyed by a philosophy of big government. And this philosophy has been fostered upon us by Democrats and Republicans alike, by liberals and conservatives alike. We've got to change that. Mr. Speaker, the only way that we're going to change governing here in the United States is not here in Washington, not here in the U.S. House of Representatives, not over across the way in the U.S. Senate, not down the street on Pennsylvania Avenue in the White House. The only way we're going to change the philosophy of governance is if the grassroots, the good people across this nation, start demanding a different kind of governance. We've got to stop this outrageous spending. We've got to get our economy back on track. We've got to start creating jobs. What's made this country so rich, so powerful, so successful as a political experiment, the greatest political experiment in all of history, of all of mankind, is right here in the United States, based on the Constitution of the United States in its original intent. We have a tremendous lack of knowledge. Now, the Federalist Papers in the old language, it's a bit difficult to read. Their style of writing, their style of English was a bit different from ours. I've got another resource that I highly recommend, which is the Federalist Papers in Modern Language. A person can buy this off Amazon. They can get this in Barnes & Noble and bookstores around the country. If they don't have it in stock, it can be ordered. But what the editor, Mary Webster, did is she got some folks to transliterate the Federalist Papers from old-style English into modern English. What transliterate means is to change one word in the old style to another word in the new style. This is not an editorialization of the Federalist Papers. It's not a commentary on the Federalist Papers. It's strictly a transliteration. In other words, it's changed from old-style English into new-style English. And that's all it's done. And people can go and read either the Federalist Papers in its original English form or the Federalist Papers in modern language and can become knowledgeable. We've got to light grass fires all across this country to demand a different kind of governance. Or we're going to destroy everything that our Founding Fathers have given us. This nation was built on personal responsibility and accountability. It was based on freedom and liberty. I use those words separately. Let me explain liberty for you, give you a definition. I don't know if this is my original definition or not. I don't remember ever reading it anywhere. I haven't seen it when I've gone to look it up, but I'm not claiming it as my own, though I don't know who wrote it if someone did. Liberty. Liberty is freedom bridled by morality. Liberty is freedom bridled by morality. You see, a wild bear is free. All the wild bear is constrained by is the instincts that our Creator put in the wild bear. It can go anywhere it wants to. A male wild bear will even kill its own cubs just to try to get to the sow, to breed her. And he doesn't care about anybody else but himself. That sow will protect her cubs, but other than that, she's free and she chooses to do so by her instinct. But absolute freedom is anarchy. It's anarchy. You see, if I'm totally free, if I don't like somebody, I could just kill them. In fact, we see that by dictators around the world, historically as well as in present times. But you see, freedom bridled by morality, liberty, means that my freedom stops where another person's freedom starts. And we can come together and work in concert for the greater good. For the greater good of our families, our communities, our cities, our states, as well as our nation. This country was founded upon liberty, personal responsibility and accountability. It's been so successful economically because it's been based on the free enterprise system. Free enterprise. Free enterprise is the engine that pulls along the train of economic prosperity here in America. But we're destroying that. Our president has a philosophy that I believe is totally against free enterprise. A lot of my colleagues, Democrat and Republican alike, believe federal government ought to control virtually every aspect of our lives. George W. Bush was a big spending, big government president. He gave us No Child Left Behind, which has been a disaster. I call it Leave No Teacher Unshackled. We've got to get the shackles off teachers. Let the local school boards run the educational system, not by a federal Department of Education, or I don't think even by a state Department of Education. But the states have the right to do that constitutionally. The most powerful political force in America today is embodied in the first three words of the U.S. Constitution: we the people. And if we the people will become knowledgeable about the Constitution and about the Founding Fathers, philosophy of government, the philosophy of liberty and freedom, the philosophy of a free enterprise system, a philosophy of individual responsibility and individual accountability, then we can put this country back on the right course by the American people demanding their freedom back. We've lost a lot of it. A tremendous amount of freedom has been lost. We're losing our liberty. And we have a government that is taking away our freedoms. Preamble of the Constitution of the United States. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, to ensure domestic tranquility, to provide for the common defense, to promote the general welfare, and to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States. Tonight, I'm going to talk about one little phrase in this preamble. It's also in another place in the Constitution. I'm going to talk about the General Welfare Clause. We'll come back on another night. I'm going to talk about the Commerce Clause. And then we'll talk also about the Lasted Clause and the Bill of Rights and other parts of the Constitution. But three phrases out of the Constitution have been utilized to pervert the idea behind the Constitution, to destroy its original intent, to cause us to continue to lose liberty here in America. And the General Welfare Clause is one of those. You see, Congress has strayed from the clear-cut path of certainty and liberty that our Founding Fathers outlined in the most basic and fundamental documents to ever exist, and that's our Constitution. The single most important part of this forever document is embodied in those first three words, because we're supposed to be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, as Abraham Lincoln said. Our government's purpose is to protect and preserve freedom and liberties of we the people. Government is supposed to be governing at the consent of the people, not the people being dealt with at the consent of the government. Yet nowadays it seems as though the federal government has inserted itself into almost every aspect of our day-to-day lives, monitoring what kind of health care we can have, bailing out the automobile industry, and regulating the education standards. Just a few examples of the federal government's hands overreach into things where it should not go.
Well, would the gentleman from Georgia yield for one moment?
I'll be glad to yield for 1 moment.